Hello, American Patriots, and welcome to another episode of the Ducote Show. Tonight's show, for some people, will be controversial. Some people are not going to like what I have to say. Most of you will understand where I'm coming from. As a veteran law enforcement officer, as well as my military service, I'm going to speak from wearing both hats, law enforcement and as a civilian like many of you. This show is about the death and aftermath so far of Mr. George Floyd, who tragically died while being placed under arrest by several Minneapolis police officers. So let's first talk about some of the facts in this case as we know them right now. We know that the victim's name is George Floyd. We know that the Minneapolis Police Department was involved. We know that the officer who had his knee to Mr. Floyd's neck, his name is Derek Chauvin. We know that he's been with the police force for 19 years. We know that some of the other officers involved, Toy Tao, T-O-U, and then T-H-A-O, have been with the force for 10 years. Officer Thomas Lane and Officer J. Alexander Cogan, K-U-E-N-G. So, 19 years on the police force, and you put your knee to the neck of a man that is face down on the ground for several minutes while he's already handcuffed and not resisting and pleading for his life. Thankfully, all officers involved with this, as typically what would happen is they're put on administrative leave until the investigation is done. In this case, they were fired, terminated. You're no longer a cop. Give us back your gun and badge. As it should be, from what I have witnessed by watching the videos that have been released. Moving forward, we know that the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI in Minneapolis have said today they are conducting a robust criminal investigation into Floyd's death and was making the case a priority. The FBI had already announced it was investigating whether Floyd's civil rights were violated. Well, I'd say more than his rights were violated. The guy was murdered. The new announcement came a day after President Trump tweeted that he had asked an investigation to be expedited. Trump said, "At my request, the FBI and the Department of Justice are already well into the investigation as to the very sad and tragic death of Minnesotan George Floyd. I have asked for this investigation to be expedited and greatly appreciate all the work done by local law enforcement. My heart goes out to George's family and friends. Justice will be served." Now, unlike in many previous cases, what people call for right away is action. They are really against seeing officers put on administrative leave when a shooting takes place or someone is killed. In this case, they were fired. Now, no arrests have been made as of right this moment, to my knowledge. Give it time. That's coming. You have to trust that. Why it has not happened already, as the mayor has called for and many, many other leaders across our country, I can't answer that question. I can tell you based off of just the evidence that I have personally seen from the videos, if I was in leadership there, there'd be people behind bars right now. Let's continue. The president spoke out against this tragedy. That's something that everybody wants. Although CNN and MSNBC have said he spoke out too late. He should have spoke out immediately. Well, you know how many people die in America every day that people want the president to speak out about? Let's talk about use of force. As a veteran law enforcement officer, I can assure you that there is not an agency in America, city, county, federal, nowhere, no law enforcement agency that in their use of force allows a knee to be put to the neck of someone, especially when they're not resisting and they're handcuffed, for crying out loud. What took place is a tragedy that should never have happened. This cop knew better. The cops that stood there and did nothing knew better. And the pieces will fall. Trust me. Then on top of all this, we have former San Francisco quarterback Colin Kaepernick reacting to the death of George Floyd and the violent protests that are ongoing by tweeting the following: "When civility leads to death, revolting is the only local reaction." I'm going to reread that. When civility leads to death, revolting is the only reaction, logical reaction. Well, Mr. Failed Quarterback, that is absolutely not true and goes against a civilized country, as is most of everything that you've ever said or done when it comes to kneeling for the national anthem. He went on to say, "The cries for peace will rain down, and when they do, they will land on deaf ears, because your violence has brought this resistance." And I've already shown you and talked about how that's a freaking lie, because it isn't coming down on deaf ears. Action is being taken. He goes on to say, "We have the right to fight back. Rest in power, George Floyd." No, sir, you do not have the right to fight back. That is not what we do in a civilized country. We have elections, we vote, we have attorneys, we have the power to protest, and the justice system has the opportunity to play out and do the right thing. Even when the right thing doesn't fit how we believe it should fit, by acting out with more violence does not bring back Mr. Floyd, and it makes your entire protest, your voice becomes silent on deaf ears, because you acted as if you're from a third world country, and that's how they act there. We are a civilized country. regardless of where you stand on this matter. So, what has taken place in the past couple of days? Protesters. And I'm 100% for protesting. It is your right as an American. Is it your right to loot and burn down the community? Nope. Nowhere in our Constitution or our Bill of Rights does it give you, anyone, no matter what someone did, to take this type of action. Rioters set fire to a number of small businesses and chain stores, including burning down an AutoZone. Some of the businesses that were targeted and looted were a Target and liquor stores. Looters smashed windows, dismantled equipment, taking what they could from inside the stores. They were seen carrying merchandise from stores such as TVs, stereos, tobacco, clothes, shoes, alcohol, computers, laptops, iPads, and cell phones. Because of this peaceful protesting, 2 more people are dead. Not just Mr. Floyd. One person was shot and killed by a business owner that was being looted. Another man was fatally shot last night near a pawn shop, shot by the owner as he was trying to loot it. These are reactions to the looters' actions. Here we are with the COVID-19 crisis, no matter what side of the fence you are with that, and these businesses trying to survive and going underwater, going in the red. And then you go and loot them and steal all their shit and set it on fire for what? For what? What I saw on TV last night and today, and yesterday, was like a bunch of animals being let out of a zoo, wild animals, to just run rapid through a city and attack and kill people. And attacking police officers and attacking police cars. And it didn't just happen in Minneapolis. It's happening in LA and San Francisco and all kinds of places across the country where the public is acting out and physically trying to hurt and kill police officers. That, by the way, has been going on since Mr. Kaepernick first took a knee. When he first came out with his original take a knee during the national anthem, if you go back and you look at everything he was originally talking about, it was this false narrative that all across America every day police officers wake up with the first thought of going out and killing young black youth. And that's absolutely BS. Are there bad police officers out there? You bet your ass there are. Just like every other business that exists, even the United States military has bad people in it. And when they're caught, in most cases, they're weeded out, as they should be. The officer was knee to Floyd's neck. Here are the options they're going to have in the very near future. Could face second-degree murder charges because of the circumstances in which he created, which was the asphyxiation of Mr. Floyd, or third-degree murder, which is basically reckless endangerment of an individual that leads to death. And I support it 100%. He should be behind bars right now. Actually, he should want to be behind bars right now because of the wild animals running the street that have already posted his address and his family address all over the internet. And they're going after him with vengeance. The other officers can be charged as well as accessory to the crime and brought up on the same charges because they did nothing. They stood there knowing that this man couldn't breathe and that the actions of the officer were illegal, and nowhere was what that officer was doing justified. And not a single officer said shit. So they too should face charges. And I do believe that they will. If they don't, well, I'll be the first one calling for it that they will be, because that would be bullshit. That would be a damn good reason to be upset. As if this whole thing isn't already. Where in a civilized society is it okay to use violence against others, especially those that had nothing to do with the situation that you're upset about? Nowhere. What did the people of Target do to deserve what happened to them? Or the liquor stores? Or the AutoZone store? What did they do? All these businesses that they busted in the windows and stole all their shit? How are they at fault for this? Why are you attacking them? It doesn't make any sense. It makes you look like a bunch of radical terrorists, because that's what you are when you conduct yourself like this. Should you be protesting? I'm all for it. Hell yes. What I saw take place in these videos is not right. And a man is dead that should not be dead. Now, autopsy's coming. Let's see what the results of that are going to be. The FBI and the Department of Justice are actively involved in this investigation. Let's see what the outcome of that's going to be. But to jump to conclusions outside of factual information that we already know by your actions or your reactions to an action to be as criminal or criminal conduct doesn't make any sense. Now, I keep hearing all over social media, other YouTubers, and other people in the government talking about this horrible thing of police officers killing black people, how it's an epidemic. You know, if you actually did your homework and actually educated yourself, you would know that more white people are killed each year by police officers in America than black people. But do you see white people going out and tearing down the town, burning down the towns, looting shit? There's a big difference here. Why is it that white people aren't out burning down businesses? Or like what happened in Ferguson, Missouri? Why? If more white people are killed by police officers, and that's factual information, by the way, why aren't white people out there acting like animals? We're pissed off too. Think about that for a moment. What's different about the black race that requires these black youth to go out and burn down buildings and loot shit? How is you getting a new 47-inch high-definition TV that you stole going to help this man's death? How? How do you justify that? Busting out the windows of a liquor store and going in there and taking all their shit from that business. How do you justify that for this man's death? How does that help his family? How does that help his memory? It doesn't. It paints you as a wild-ass animal that has absolutely no control over themselves. And it makes this whole tragedy worse because it has people looking at your actions going, you would see this shit in like Somalia, Mogadishu, Kenya, maybe down in South America, in Venezuela, Middle Eastern countries, not America. As a veteran law enforcement officer, as an American, as a human, I am outraged over the actions of these officers in Minneapolis. And they should be held accountable. And I do believe in my heart of hearts they will be held accountable for this man's death. But to go out and act like a bunch of freaking third world idiots is unacceptable. These business owners didn't do shit to you. And you destroyed what little bit of hope they had left of their business surviving. Now, the big businesses like Target or AutoZone, that's nothing. That's a write-off for them. But the small mom and pop stores that you guys went and looted and busted and stole all their shit and set on fire, no way. Completely and utterly unacceptable. Then, of course, we got the people that want to continue on about how all cops are bad. All cops. Paint them all with one brush. And that with the brotherhood of law enforcement, we know why they stood there and did nothing, because they all protect each other. And I can tell you that's bullshit too. Does it happen? Sure it happens. I know many cops that stood up for right over wrong. You're looking at one of them. When I worked with San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, there was a situation happening with another officer that was doing things that were illegal. And after I confronted them with it and I talked to them about it personally and tried to get it to stop, and it continued, I took it up the chain of command. And I almost lost my job because the person in charge of investigating it happened to turn out to be this officer that I was reporting on's godfather. Yeah. But I didn't care if I was fired. I stood my ground because I was right. Sadly, in my case, nothing ever became of this, other than that officer stopped doing things, at least in my knowledge, that was bad. But all across America, every single freaking day. There's over 500,000 interactions of law enforcement officers with the civilian community. And nothing like this takes place. All the good things that happen, which outweigh all the bad things that happen in law enforcement, never gets reported on. Nobody gives a shit about. All they care about is when something does bad happen, make it look like everybody in law enforcement is doing it. And that's wrong. 99.999% of every law enforcement officer out there took an oath to protect their citizens and took an oath to the Constitution. Yes, there are those that shit on their oath and don't care about the Constitution. I get that. When we find them, we call them out. That's how it's done. We report their actions. And trust me, the last thing you want is internal affairs knocking on your door while you're off duty to talk to you about something you did, to find out where the facts are. And that happens. There is a process. It's a process that I know for a fact in most cases, most of the time, actually works. Are there some cops that have their brother's back or sister's back no matter what? Sure are. And they should be weeded out. The police officers that you've seen on YouTube going against individual citizens' constitutional rights should be weeded out and fired. That's right, I said it. If you're out there harassing people and violating their constitutional rights because the governor put out a non-binding law that says your constitutional rights just got turned off, then you're wrong. These are isolated cases, but they're put all over the internet to look like it's happening all over the country. And that is not the case at all. The majority of police officers in this country are good men and women that believe in their oath. And they're doing this for the service of their community. Because they sure as shit aren't doing it for the pay. Because the pay for the average law enforcement officer sucks. And if you're a law enforcement officer in a liberal area of the country, or you have a Democrat mayor, well, you're just screwed. Because everything you do is scrutinized. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that today in 2020 I could go back and do that job again. Because of the way people, and it's only a small percentage, but it's enough to affect the outcome. The way people are treating cops. Painting them all as bad. And that gets people, good people, hurt and killed. Where's the outrage of the police officers that have been shot and killed by bad guys? And it happens every year, many, many times. Where's that outrage? There is none. Where's the outrage of the black on black crime? Where's it at? Chicago. When, hell, on the weekends, 25, 30 people are shot. 5 or 10 die. And that's every metropolitan city in America that's controlled by Democrats. Look at it, folks. There was a time, I remember it well, when law enforcement was a profession that many youth looked at as something they wanted to do. And then when you were a police officer, you were proud. And now, law enforcement agencies all across the country are having horrible recruiting drive issues, getting people to become cops, getting good qualified people to become cops, because of the negativity that has been put out there by the mainstream media and the youth heroes like Colin Kaepernick. Every time a police officer is killed in the line of duty by a violent person, the first thought enters my head is Colin Kaepernick. And I go, the blood's on your hands. Because you spread a false narrative. You took a few isolated conditions and painted a broad brush for everyone in law enforcement. And so did CNN, and so did MSNBC. And so are the Democrats up in Washington, D.C. that immediately jump on the law enforcement officer. Like the Michael Brown case. That's a prime example. To this day, as I speak, Michael Brown is held up as a hero. And the police officer is the villain. The Obama administration sent people to represent the president to Michael Brown's funeral. And he was the bad guy. But nobody gives a shit about that. Nope. It was a white cop. He killed a black guy. Oh, a young innocent black kid. Hands up, don't shoot. That all came from that case. But when all the facts came out, investigated with a black president in office who had a black attorney general, I'll be damned. The officer was in the right. Michael Brown never had his hands up and said, don't shoot. All the witnesses to that case that came out and spoke the truth instead of the one or two people in the very beginning that CNN put their cameras on that lied their ass off. When the truth came out, Michael Brown physically attacked that officer and then tried to take his gun and kill him while he was high on dope after just holding up a convenience store. And the officer's life is ruined. Of course, so is Michael Brown's because he's dead. And the members of the Black Caucus up in Washington, D.C., to this day, trash the officer involved. Not the guy who's dead because he tried to beat up and ultimately tried to kill the police officer. No different than what happened with the Trayvon Martin case. Yes, have we found out since then that George Zimmerman is a piece of crap? Yeah, we sure have. But the actual scenario that took place, George Zimmerman was in his rights because he was having the shit beat out of him. We know that from the evidence, from the witnesses. Hell, George Zimmerman was on the phone with the 911 operator as it was going on. But what happened? What did the Obama administration do? What did all the Black Caucus do? Taken to the freaking House of Congress and standing up and talking about how Trayvon Martin is his martyr. I hope these officers involved, every one of them, justice is served. I do believe it will be. But for those of you that are making the situation worse by painting all cops as the bad people, and by looting and burning and doing physical harm and injury to others in your peaceful protest, your ass needs to be in the justice system being prosecuted too. Because nowhere will you find that you have the right to act this way. And Colin Kaepernick, you are the biggest subhuman piece of crap on the face of the earth for the rhetoric that comes out of your mouth. And sadly, thousands of youth look up to you as their hero and believe the shit that you spew about the men and women of law enforcement. I am the very first person to tell you that when a cop oversteps their boundary and does something that's now illegal, they should be held accountable. I will always believe that, just like I do with any and everyone else. If you conduct criminal activity, you should be prosecuted for it. It's plain and simple. But just because a few people working for Best Buy, let's say, out of all the Best Buys in America or all the Best Buys in the world, happen to be thieves and like to steal shit from the company, doesn't make every employee at Best Buy a thief. Or Walmart, or Target, or anywhere else, or the military. Yes, there are people in the military that commit crimes, and they should be held accountable for their crimes. And in most cases in America, when they're caught, they are prosecuted. But for you as an American citizen to act like some wild-ass animal let out of a zoo to go out and start terrorizing the community, and then for somebody like Colin Kaepernick to say, that's how we act, that's what's expected from us. No, sir. It's not. I don't expect it from my community. I don't expect it from white people. I don't expect it from black people or Asian people or Muslims or anyone else. There's a right way to do things and report things, and there is a wrong way. And what's happening right now is wrong. A man is dead. And looting and burning down the city isn't bringing him back. It just makes you a criminal. And it completely destroys your constitutional rights as a protester. Because now you're doing something. You're reacting to someone else's actions in an illogical way. In a way that is not part of our human society in a civilized nation. Take my word for it. There will be officers arrested very soon. They will be charged with what they did. I know in my heart of hearts that's coming. If it doesn't, well, it'll be even a sadder day in America. And I'll be leading the charge, writing the letters, contacting members of Congress and law enforcement saying, damn it, do something. I hope that you understand my message. It pains me deep in my soul. Every fiber in my body hurts when I hear of a police officer using their badge in a powerful way that is unconstitutional, illegal, and criminal. And it pains me just as much when I see another human being acting violent because of that officer's actions. Especially because neither one are okay. Many times I've told you that our justice system is broken. You've heard it from me if you watch me and follow me. And to this moment, I'm telling you our justice system is broken. But we still have to allow the system to work itself. Give it time. Let this man be buried peacefully. Let the justice system do their job. And I do believe they will in this case. And let justice be served. Don't take matters into your own hands and act like a hoodlum thug, raping and pillaging and burning. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our doctors and nurses that are on the front lines fighting this COVID-19 crisis, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, our president, and our country. Folks, we are in trying times coming at us from so many different directions and angles that is almost unbearable. I get that. But why pour gas on a fire and make it worse? There's no need for that. You had many places you could be tonight. You chose to be here to watch my show, and for that I am gratefully appreciative. Thank you. God bless you. And I'll be seeing you soon.